Hello dear students, welcome to second lecture of communication. The first lecture we discussed the theme what is the communication, need, importance and the types of communication. Here we are discussing what are the other classification of the communications, communication process, what are the barriers of the communication and how to steps to overcome the barriers of the communication. And these are the important contents of this second lecture. So once again, different types of communication, communication process, the barriers of communication and step to overcome the communication, barriers of the communication. This is the important contents of this second lecture. Okay, so first of all, what is the communication? The communication means it's an exchange of idea, fact between the two or more person. The term is known as the communication. It's a process which two or more persons transmit or exchange thoughts, ideas among themselves. So term is known as the communication. And the communication can be classified into three. The first one, according to organized structure, there is a formal and the informal communication. And according to direction, there is a upward, downward and the horizontal communication. And according to way of expression, there is a oral and the written communication. And these are the important types of the communication. We have already discussed the first classification according to the organized structure. There is a formal and there is an informal communication. And formal means there is an official relationship existing in your organization. And informal means there is a personal relationship. And we discuss according to direction point of view. According to direction, there is a three types of communication. There is upward, downward and horizontal. Listen, and first one, what is the downward communication? It's very simple. The downward communication, the flow is the top to bottom. There is a top to bottom. The information passes from the top to level to the bottom level, the subordinate level. That is known as the downward communication. And you're starting from the manager and end with you the worker. The types of communication known as the downward communication. See, the flow is like the downward pattern. The manager communicating the workers or the manager communicating the subordinates is a very important example regarding the downward communication. This is the most common form of the formal communication wherein the communication flows downward. It's one of the important forms of the formal communication and here the communication flow the downward. The people are occupying the different positions organization to the people to the lower level. That means you are communicating with the lower level people. The top levels are communicating with the lower level people. It is known as the downward communication. This diagram shows that it starts with the manager and with the worker. It's the information passes from the management level to the subordinate level. This term is known as the downward communication. Okay, that's the first pattern of the communication, is the downward communication. And another one is upward communication. Upward communication means the quite reverse of the downward communication. An upward communication, that means the workers are communicating with the manager. It's starting from the workers and end with the manager. The workers giving the proper guidance and proper suggestions to through your supervisor and reach the managers. This is the upward communication. The upward communications is a communication where subordinate to the management level. The subordinate, that means subordinate is one of the important elements of the communication and subordinate level to the management level. The upward communication is a process and starting from the workers and end with the manager. There's a flow, it's like the upward pattern. That is a upward communication. It's called reverse of the downward pattern. The downward from the top to bottom and there is a bottom to the top. Okay, there's another important pattern of communication. There's upward communication. It's a starting from the worker and end with the manager. Okay, the second category of the communication is upward communication, starting with the subordinate and the end with the superior. So like an upward pattern. The pattern is like an upward format. The term is known as the upward communication. A downward, the pattern from the managers to the workers. So the pattern is downward. An upward communication, the pattern is like the upward format, starting with the subordinate and with your superior. And here there is a managers to the worker, that is a downward. And second one is upward, and third one is horizontal communication. This horizontal means same level, they are communicating the same level. That means you are communicating the co-worker the same level, can be treated as horizontal communication. Suppose the purchase manager communicate the production manager, a production manager communicate the quality control manager, and quality control manager communicate sales manager. So this pattern is known as a horizontal. That means the horizontal pattern, the same level, they are communicating, they are exchanging the ideas and the fact. So the example is known as horizontal communication. So the horizontal communication means when the co-workers with the different areas of responsibility but the same level in the organization, they have the same level in the organization, they are sharing their idea in between them. It's known as a horizontal. It is the same level communication. Upward is a downward means top to bottom, upward means bottom to top, and horizontal means same level. Suppose the purchase manager communicate with the production manager, and they are the same level workers, they properly communicate their idea, their issues. This is known as a horizontal communication. This communication between the managers of the different departments such as marketing, finance, production, HR is the best example of the horizontal communication. That means same level managers like you, the marketing, finance, production. So example regarding you are the horizontal communication. So that means according to the pattern, according to the pattern, according to direction point of view, there is a downward, there is a upward, and there is a horizontal communication. Okay, and another one is according to the way of expression. The last one is according to the way of expression. According to the way of expression, the communication can be classified oral communications and the written communication. Okay, the first one is oral communication. Oral communication means is a communication through your mouth. The mouth communication is known as the oral communication. It includes individual conversing with each other, or conversation, or telephonic conversation, speech, presentation, discussion, all are the form of the oral communication. You are the presentation format, your speech, you are the discussion, all are the formal communication. That means all are the forms of the oral communication. That means you are communicating through your the mouth. That is an important element of the oral communication. That is through your the mouth. Suppose telephonic conversation, mobile conversation, speech, all of the example regarding your the oral communication. And what are the advantages of the oral communication? There are some advantages regarding the oral communication. We're discussing what are the advantages of the oral communication. There's the first advantage is a high level of understanding. There is a chance for the transparency, and there's high level of understanding between the persons, because you can be easily communicate your the words. There is a high level of understanding and the transparency. There is no element of rigidity. Here there is a flexible pattern of communication. There is no element of rigidity existing in the oral communication. There is a great flexibility is enjoyed. There is a feedback is spontaneous, because there is a live contact. So is a live pattern, and live pattern you can get easily feedback from the another person. This is spontaneous feedback. Feedback is spontaneous near the oral communication. A oral communication is not only time saving but also save the money and effort. You can save a lot of time, money, and effort in your oral communication. That's another important strength of your oral communication. You can save your time, the money. Another one is oral communication is the best way in case of the problem solution. Suppose any issue in your organization, you can directly ask what is the issue. This is one of the straight way of reducing the problem. Oral communication is best in case of the problem resolutions. Solve the problem solving. And another one is communication is essential for teamwork and the group energy. Oral communication is very important. The mouth-to-mouth communication is very essential for the teamwork and the group energy. Therefore, is creating a lot of teamwork in an organization. That's another important advantage of the oral communication. High level understanding, there is element of rigidity, the spontaneous, and it's not only time saving and it's not just money, and the communication best problem solution is essential for the teamwork and the group energy. And these are the important advantages of the oral communication. Okay, now about the written communication. This is another pattern of communication, written communication. That means writing letter, writing circular, writing manual. Suppose your principal is writing letter to your students, it's like a written format. The Prime Minister written a letter to the Chief Secretary or the Chief Minister of State, that's the written format. This is written communication. A written communication means sending a message order, instruction. Suppose the principal sending certain order to the students. It's like a written format. That's written communication. So writing through the letters, circulars, manual, report, telegram, all of the example regarding your written communication. It's a formal method of communication. It's less flexible because there's no face-to-face interaction. Only through the letters, so there is less flexible. A written document preserved properly become the permanent record of the future reference. Your written record can be kept for the future reference. Suppose your certificate, the plus 2 certificate is the exam written format. This is a written format and it can be permanent record for the future reference. Suppose you're getting this plus 2 certificate from the government of Kerala, and suppose CBSE, this certificate is like a permanent record. It's a written format. It's a permanent record and it's very useful for the future. So very example, that's a written communication. That means through the words, here there is a written letter, circular, manual. That's a form of your written communication. Okay, I'm discussing what advantages of the written communication, and there's some advantages for the written communication. The first one is a long distance communication, repeated standing order. It's suitable for the long distance. Suppose you are sitting in India, you must be communicate with America. I can be sent you the letter through the email. So there's a written format. So it's a very suitable for the long distance communication. It's very suitable for the long distance. And we create the permanent record for the evidence. Written communication is like a permanent record for any evidence. Your plus 2 certificate, like a permanent record for the future reference, can be used for the future reference. That's another important advantage of your written communication. And give the receiver sufficient time to think. Definitely get the written circular letter. It will be sufficient time to respond and think. So this receiver get the sufficient time to think. Can be used for the legal document. Can be used as a legal documents. The written communication can be used as a legal document. Last one, sent to the many person at a time. Can be sent many person single time. These are the advantages of the written communication. Very suitable for the long distance. It's a permanent record. Receive sufficient time to think. Used for the legal document and sent many person at a single time. These are the benefits of the written communication. Okay, and these are types of communication. There is oral, written, upward, downward, horizontal communication. And after that, let us discuss the communication process. How this communication is passing. This is the process of communication. Look at the diagram, and there is a diagram shows the process of the communication. And as per the diagram point of view, the first important element, the communication process, is the first one is center. The center or the communicator, he is sending the message to another person and conveying his message, means sending the message to the receiver. So center is one of the important element of the communication process. Sender sending the message. The first one, sender is very important element of the communication process. First person is the source and sometimes sender. And second one is a message. A sender must send a message. Message means like idea, information, fact generated by the sender that is intended to communication. So second one, sender. First there must be a sender, and sender is sending what? There is a message. There is a proper message. It's very important element of the communication process. First person is sender and second one is a message. And third one is encoding. Encoding means the message generated by the sender is encoded sometimes symbolically, such as in the form of words, pictures, gestures before it being conveyed. Sometimes the communicator use certain words, the pictures, gestures before it has been conveyed. So that process is known as encoding. Encoding means the using of the words, some types of pictures. So Indian Army center is sending some certain codes, the gestures, and sometimes the pictures. And these are the important element of encoding. Encoding is very important. Sometimes the official information must be encoded using certain words, pictures, gestures, and before it is being conveyed. That's known as encoding. So the first one, center is sending a message, and after the message may be encoded pattern. Another one is the media. So media is another important element. The messaging, sending the message. The message must be properly communicated through the media. The message is transmitted orally or written. The medium of communication very important. Whether it's a telephone, internet, fax, post, email. The choice of medium is decided by the center. The medium can be decided by the center. He can use any medium like the electronic medium, telephones, internet, post, fax, and the email can as per the wish of the center. The choice of media is decided by the center. There is a fourth important element, is the media. So listen, the first one, center, and there is a message, there is encoding, and there is a media. Media is very important element. The media choice of medium is decided by the center. That's the first four element. And after that, the decoding. Decoding is called reverse of encoding. And an encoding point of a center using certain symbols, gestures, and pictures. And decoding means the process of converting the symbols encoded by the center. After the decoding, the message received by the receiver. So there is a decoding is very important element. As center sending the message, and there is encoding the media, and there is a decoding. Before getting the receiver, it must be decoded. So look at this diagram, shows that the decoding, encoding, the encoding is in between the message and media, and the media and the receiver there is a decoding. There is a decoding is a very important element. It's a process of converting the symbols encoded by the center after decoding the message received by the receiver. The term is known as the decoding. Now the receiver getting the information, the receiver getting the formal information. Here he is the person who last chain of the command to whom the message was sent by the receiver. Who was sent by the center. Once the receiver receives the message and understand is a proper perspective and act according to the message, only then the purpose of communication is successful. It's a very important receiver. There is a center and the receiver. The center is sending the information to the receiver, and receiver is giving the feedbacks. And here there is a feedback. The feedback means response. Response is given by the receiver to the center. Okay, there is a giving the feedback. The last one is the noise. There is a possibility of sometimes there is obstructions. Any obstruction caused by the sender message or receiver during the process of communication is known as a noise. There is a possibility for the noise. There is a disturbance sometime in the communication process. This diagram is a right diagram, shows the communication process. The center sending the message before this encoding, and there is a media, there is decoding, and there is a receiver. The receiver is giving the proper feedback, and there is a possibility of the noise is existing in the entire translation. This is like any obstruction. These are 8 important steps regarding the communication. The center, message, encoding, media, decoding, receiver, feedback, and the noise. These are the important steps for your the communication. Okay, and after that, what are the barriers of communication? Suppose the communication boundary stands for the barriers, obstructions, and what are the barriers of communication? The first is the use of jargon, that means overcomplicated words, technical terms, linguistic barriers. Sometimes certain persons are using some jargons like means ununderstanding words, unfamiliar words in your the communication process. It's created a lot of the troubles and mistakes in the communication. The first important barrier, use of jargon, overcomplicated, unfamiliar words. Another barrier is like emotions barriers. Some say emotions, the emotions of the center. So another important barriers and the communication process. There's emotion barriers. The emotions, timely emotions, the temperament is one of the important element. So emotions negatively reflecting the communication. There's another barriers like emotional barriers. Then another one, lack of attention, interest, distraction, or the irrelevance of the receiver. That means the lack of attention and interest, distraction, irrelevance to the receiver, or irrelevance, not considered in the receiver angle. The receiver is one of the important person of the communication. Center sending the information, receiver as a receiver receiving the information. Sometimes there is lack of attention and interest in the communication process. That's another drawbacks of the barriers of the communication. And there's another difference of perception. Both receiver and sender have the different perception. The perception created a lot of trouble. So there's another barriers like a difference in the perceptions. And there's a physical disabilities such as a hearing problems, speech difficulties. There's a chance for the physical disabilities like hearing problems. Sometimes the overhearing problems, and there is speech difficulties, and another important barriers for communication. Another physical barrier, non-verbal communication. Sometimes the linguistic barrier, the language is one of the important problems. The language differences, difficulty understanding unfamiliar accent. Suppose Europeans and American use different accent. The language difference is another important difficulty in the communication process. That's another drawback, is like a language proficiency and the language difficulty and using the accents. It's another important problem. Another one is the expectation prejudice. Sometimes your prejudice, which may lead to the assumptions, stereotyping. That's it. Certain situations ഭയങ്കര prejudice ആയിരിക്കും. അയാൾ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമാണ് അയാൾക്ക് മാത്രമേ മനസ്സിലാവുള്ളൂ. The term is not prejudice. The expectation prejudice. That's another barriers of communication. And there is a cultural, both cultural difference. Suppose North Indians and South Indian culture both are different and use different words for the communication. Sometimes നമ്മൾ ചില വേർഡ്സിൽ ഇവിടെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന വേർഡ്സിൽ അവിടെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതായിരിക്കാം. കൾച്ചറൽ ഡിഫറൻസ് ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കാം. ദാറ്റ്സ് അനദർ ബാരിയേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് ദ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ. ദാറ്റ്സ് എ കൾച്ചറൽ ഡിഫറൻസസ്. ആൻഡ് ഇൻഫോർമേഷൻ ഓവർലോഡ്, ഒരുപാട് ഇൻഫോർമേഷൻസ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേറ്റ്. ദാറ്റ്സ് എ ഇൻഫോർമേഷൻ ഓവർലോഡ്. That's another important barriers of the communication. There's a lot of the information and not understanding manner. That's the information overload. There's a poor listening. The listening capacity is one of the important elements of communication. Sometimes there is a poor listening habit. It will be negatively affecting. There's emotions, emotional feelings of the receiver and sender, and complicity in the organization structure. There's a lot of chance for the complicity of the organization structure. There's a matrix pattern organization. It will create the communication errors. And these are the important barriers and obstacles regarding the communication. We use jargon and the overcomplicated words, and technical words, emotion barriers, lack of the retention, interest, difference in perception, physical disability, physical barriers, language differences, expectation and prejudice, cultural differences, information overload, poor listening, emotions, and complicity. And these are the important barriers of the communication. Okay, finally, how to overcome these barriers? What are the steps to overcome the barriers? We're discussing a lot of the barriers are related with the communication, and how can you overcome these barriers? What are the steps to overcome the barriers of communication? Okay, so the first one is eliminating difference perception. So one of the important, the perception may be difference. The perception difference is one of the important drawback of the communication, of the barriers of the communication, and must be eliminated the difference in the perception. Very important element. Suppose you writing a letter, must be perception very important. You must be identify the understanding level of the other person. So the first eliminating the difference, the perception. Then this way you can be able to overcome the barriers and use a simple language. You try to use simple language. Suppose example, Shashi Tharoor using a lot of the complicated languages sometimes. So he's not easily understood is not easily understood by the common people. So it must be used simple language in a communication process. So that's another important element, to use simple languages. A reduction, elimination noise. In a communication point of view, that's one of the important problems, noise. That means noise means here the obstruction. There's a lot of obstruction. Try to reduce this elimination noise level. That is one of the important steps to overcome the communication barriers. So noise level, and maintain active listening. Active listening is another important way to overcome the barriers. Suppose you are actively listening certain element, you can be easily understand things. So there is active listening. Then is another emotional state. We have a lot of emotions, emotional feeling. So we must be try to empathetic and try to reduce the emotional level. That's another important steps to overcome the barriers of the communication, the emotional state. And simple organized structure. Suppose your organization is a complexity, there will be one of the important barrier. So you must be try to simple organized structure for reducing the barriers. So able to maintaining the good organized structure, then simple organized structure. And another one is avoid the information overload. Suppose the information overload created a lot of the problems in the communication process. So try to reduce the information over. That means communicate only few information within the time. So avoiding the information overload. That is another important steps to overcome the barriers of communication. And give the constructive feedbacks. The feedback, the sender and the receiver. The receiver must be give the proper feedback for the feedback to the sender, and this is a constructive feedback and reducing some barriers. Yes, okay, fine. This sometimes it's like a feedback. Another proper media selection. The media selection depends upon your audience. You can use a different medium like the letters, email, and different media can be used, and this medium must be selected according to the audience. That means receiver capacity very important element whenever you're selecting the media. So medium selection can be overcome the barriers of the communication. And finally, there's the flexibility in the meeting target. You must be maintaining the flexibility in the meeting of the target. Not to be rigidity, you must be flexibility. You must be ensure the flexibility in the meeting of the targets. And this way can be able to control the barriers of the communication. And these are the important steps to overcome the barriers of the communication. The first, eliminate difference perception, use simple language, reduce and eliminate noise level, emotion, avoid information overload, give the constructive feedback, proper media, flexibility, and these are the steps for overcoming the barriers of communication. Okay, let me conclude. This lecture is starting with the classification of the communication. Different types of communication, and we're discussing the different types of communication. That means according to the organized structure, there's formal, informal, direction point of there's upward, downward, and horizontal. Got way of expression, there's oral and written communication. And downward there's top to bottom, and upward means bottom to top, and horizontal means same level of communication. This is horizontal communication. And this oral communication, that means you through the words over the mouth, the team is known as the oral communication. Written means the written letters, circular, manuals, or the exam regarding the written communication. And this is the communication process. There's center, there's a message, there is encoding, media, decoding, receiver, feedback, and noise. These are the important steps for the communication. Okay. And these are barriers. There's a linguistic barrier, physical disability, lack of attention, cultural differences, information overload, emotions. So a lot of the barriers in your communication. And how to overcome these barriers. These are the steps to overcome the barriers of the communication: active listening, emotional state, avoiding the information overload, give the constructive feedback, and proper medium, flexibility in the meeting targets. These are the important steps to overcome the barriers of communication. And listen, a communication point of view, this stands for the lot of the barriers. The linguistic barriers is one of the important barriers of the communication. So they use the simple languages to avoid the problems. So the communication is very essential for the business organization, and business organization have to face a lot of the troubles in whenever you communicate certain ideas. And the good organization and must try to reduce the barriers of the communication. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much, and thank you for watching me.